Now, in the Christmas version of this event, I talked through this little chart, and I thought it was worth going through again for those who weren't there. So when I talk about people who are in the core of your church, this refers to kind of the Christians in your church who are there kind of every week, or the majority of the time. You know, that they're Christians, they've got a strong faith, and they are engaged in the activities that your church is doing. So we're going to be thinking about how during this time between now and Easter, you can be helping those people to concentrate and to focus on Jesus. So we're going to talk about that first, and then we're going to talk about who we would refer to as more congregation. Now, you might think, well, the congregation is just people who attend, but in this sense, we're talking about the people who have a link into your church, but aren't in that core group. So they're just outside of the core group. They may be sporadic attenders, or they may be linked in through some of the clubs or the ministries that you run, but they're kind of in that next layer, and how you might point them to Jesus during this Easter period. And then we're going to go another layer out to the community. So they may have no link to your church, or they may have just heard of it, but there is no way for you to directly contact them through your in-church events. So how are you going to be reaching out to those people who are on the outer ring in this Easter time? So we're going to work from the inside to the outside, and we're going to think about some of the things that we can be doing for the resources and the events and the ideas that we've got. So thinking about this core, we're going to start off with families. So the families in your church who are engaged, how can we be pointing them and helping them to make Jesus the center of Lent and Easter? So we've got some resources here that we would like to put forward to you as something that you could suggest. Now, depending on the budget in your church and the circumstances about whether those people could afford them, you may want to subsidize these or do an order together so that you can get a kind of bulk or discount rate. But these are the ones that we're going to propose that would be helpful. So if you've never seen them before, we have something called devotional dippers. So they're a little tube like this, and then inside you have these little sticks, the dippers, which have on them a devotional, and they're great to use as a family. My 6-year-old in particular loves these because he gets to pick it out, so it's kind of like a lucky dip, and that's, I think, to him a little exciting element that he gets to pick something out, and each day there's something different, and then when you've done it, it's got a different color at that end, and then you pop it back in so you know which ones you've done. Now, these come in 3 at the moment, 3 different types: key Bible words, the names and attributes of God, and prayer. And there are 40, which means that it's perfect for Lent. So apart from Sundays, which are not counted during those 40 days, if you started this on Ash Wednesday, they would take you up to Easter. So that's a good option, especially for those people who are not in the regular habit of doing it. It's a really good time to start thinking about how to do family devotions and family Bible time, because you've got this concentrated period. It's sometimes a bit easier to start up during this time. The next one, it's a very unusual book. It's called The Darkest Night, the Brightest Day. And what happens is it's 2 books in one. So we've got Darkest Night, and then when you flip the book over upside down, you've got Brightest Day. And there are 7 in the Darkest Night and 7 in the Brightest Day, 7 leading up to Easter Sunday and 7 for after Easter Sunday. Now, I did work it out because I was like, well, not everybody would want to do it like that. If you started from when Lent starts, you could have the 7 weeks running up to Easter. So you could do it once a week, or you could do it in your church services, or in your weekly young people's group. You could do them 1 a week running up to Easter, and then the 7 that are after Easter will take you up to Pentecost. And the last devotion in the Brightest Day section is Pentecost. Okay, so if you don't want to necessarily do this as a family, it is an option to consider it as a church ministry. It's a really beautiful hardback book, and it's definitely something to consider. So you can get that on our website at the moment. Another one is a Jesus Easter, which is another family devotional, and there are 30. Now, I've not quite figured out when you start that, because it doesn't actually say. But the bonus of there being 30 is that sometimes if you have a busy day in the week, for example, you go swimming on a particular day or a different day, and sometimes things get missed, it means that you've got a little bit of an opportunity to catch up in your 30 devotions in the run up to Easter. Moving on to teens, because obviously some of those things, especially the devotional dippers, they are quite flexible. They are quite broad ranging in the level of detail that you can go into when you're looking at them. We have some devotions that might be useful for teens. So these two little ones, these are little hardback ones. Who is Who, 40 Bible names and their meaning, and then Trust God and Don't Be Afraid, which are 40 about faith. So again, 40 devotionals, so that's quite handy as we count those 40 days towards Easter. But then we also have this Grand Tour, which is it's designed and it's written by Asia Link, who are a ministry organization. And although this is 90, I think this would be a great start for some young people to start praying through and thinking about ministry overseas and missionary organizations. So you could start off with the idea that it's for Lent and then continue onwards. And each day looks at a particular country in Asia and how to pray and to think about that. On to the more grown-ups, but again, these could be quite happily used by teens. This year's new devotional for Lent is called From Glory to Glory, and this is a bumper one. When I saw it, I was like, wow, it's huge, because it's got 54 devotions. So this takes you from Ash Wednesday right through Lent, including Sundays, and it takes you to the Sunday after Easter as well. So there are 54 devotions in there. Last year's from Tim Chester, which is called Forgiven. This has 47. So again, it does include the Sundays between Ash Wednesday and Easter Sunday. And this is also quite a substantial book. And both of those, if you bulk buy them as a church, if you come together and you are able to order them together, you can get those from as little as £1 per copy, which is incredible. I'm struggling to believe how we're still selling stuff for £1 a copy at the moment in this climate, but we are, because we want people to be reading these books. And it is so great to do something together as a church where you can maybe have a WhatsApp group or a weekly check-in to see what people are thinking, how they've been challenged. And it's a really helpful thing to do, again, at a very specific time where people feel like, yeah, I can do this for Lent. We can do it as a group. And it's a really helpful thing to do. Over on the right of your screen, you'll see that there is, you might not be able to see from how it looks on the screen, but it's a little postcard that sits in a little, I think it's a beach wooden block. And there are 16 of these. They're very beautifully designed postcards. And there's a little booklet that comes with them, which gives you 16 devotions. So it starts on Ash Wednesday, it runs to Easter Sunday, and they're helpful devotions, and they're displayed. I put mine on my mantelpiece. It means that they're displayed all through Lent. So it's not just, you read your devotion, you put it down. You see these every day, and you're reminded of what that devotion was about. So all of these things are obviously available on our website, and the link that we'll send following the event will have those in it. If you wanted to do something a bit more targeted in terms of group study, you might put aside the weeks leading up to Easter and maybe some post-Easter to do a course together. So the ones that we wanted to highlight, which are new since the last time we did these sessions, is a book called Learn the Gospel, which comes from the people who produce the resource 2 Ways to Live. And this is a specific course to help people in the church, so Christians, to understand the message of the gospel so that they can clearly communicate it to other people. Okay, so this is not an evangelistic course. Although obviously the content is the gospel, this is a course to teach Christians how to share the gospel. Okay, so in the book, which you buy, There are 8 chapters which correspond to the sessions. And then there's a free online video course that runs with it, which you get through their website. So if you've not seen this resource before, but you think there might be a group of people, or even your whole church, if you could organize that, could do this course in the run up to Easter to really ground in their own minds what it is that they're trying to tell people when they're trying to share the gospel, is a really helpful course that you might want to consider. And if not for now, maybe for the future. There is also a course which has recently been published by Union, which is called Come and See. And it looks at the history and theology of what mission is. So unlike Learn the Gospel, which is specifically like, this is how you are going to tell the gospel, this is the why and the need of us having a heart for mission. So again, this is a book which you would buy for those people taking part. And then there is also a video series. Now, you do have to buy that separately. It's not an expensive buy. I think it's £30 for the videos, which you get a download for. But again, that's a 10-week course, which you could do, which would help to really give a real heart to your friends and your Christian brothers and sisters of what mission is and why it's so important. Okay. Tim Wilson is one of our guests for today. He is a pastor. So I'm just going to ask him to introduce himself and to share a little bit about what his church are planning this Easter. Hi, Tim.
Hi, nice to see you all. As Bethan said, my name's Tim. I'm pastor at Wheelock Heath Baptist Church. If you don't know where Wheelock Heath is, don't worry. People a mile down the road don't know either. We're a little village in South Cheshire, so somewhere between Sandbach and Crewe, if you know either of those places. And I'm just going to share a little bit of the way that we have used these resources in the past and what we're thinking of doing in the future. So I want to start by giving you 2 stories. The first one happened at our Christmas event. This year we did a Christmas family fun day, so we got loads of kids from the community in to do crafts, to sing carols and things like that. And during that we gave away one of the 10 of those kids books, picture books that you no doubt have seen most Christmases. And when I was giving them away, one of the mums came up and said, "Oh, look," to her son, we're really looking forward to getting another of these, aren't we? We've been reading the Easter one ever since Easter, every single night. I just found that incredibly encouraging. Sometimes you give away books, don't you, and you're not sure whether they are ever read. But to think how many Christian books are going to be read every single night, and what an impact that will have on that family. So that's really encouraging. A second encouragement is revolved around this book, Your Verdict on the Empty Tomb. A few years ago, we had a couple that came to our church. They'd been to a family funeral and they felt like they needed to go to start coming to church. They happened to come on a baptism Sunday, and then the following Sunday they came at Easter, and we had all these. We have these on every seat. If you never come across Your Verdict on the Empty Tomb, it's basically the classic evidence for the resurrection type book. Quite slim, but it goes through it quite helpfully. The couple in question, they started going to a Christianity Explored course with us, and then when we get to the resurrection section, they said to another participant on the course, "Oh, what you need to do is you need to read this book." And they actually gave the book to a friend on that course. It convinced me that the resurrection was true. So we don't always know what happens with books, do we? But it is a good encouragement that these things are actually read. And so we always try to have books around our events. So if we have a family fun event or our ongoing kids and youth ministries, which I guess many of you will have, our particular blessing for us at the moment is our what used to always be called mums and tots, but we're getting more granddads and dads now with flexible working. But at those events, it's good to be able to give away kids books for Easter, and we'll definitely be getting the latest one, which you'll hear about later on. We'll give away books, our kids work and our youth work as well. And then on Sunday services, we will get books similar to this. As Bethan's already mentioned, we do have in our congregation not only Christians, but those who are looking into Christianity, those who are investigating it further. And it's great to be able to give a book as something a bit extra. I often find that when people come to church, they initially start to think, this is great, but obviously it's a load of rubbish. It can't really be true. And so to be able to give books that maybe go a little bit deeper for them and perhaps answer some of the questions they might have, that's a real blessing as well. And Bethan's mentioned some family resources, and I guess that's the core of the core for our family. We always try to do something around Christmas and Easter with our 3 kids, ranging from 2 to 7. And whilst it may be a lot of disruptions and only 2 of them can answer questions, one of them just likes to shout out when we read the stories. It's a real blessing to be able to teach them as well, and gospel resources are useful for all those things. One more I should mention, we have set up a little cafe. It's very small. We probably get about 4 or 5 people from the community in each week, but we have a little book stand. And we just put some evangelistic books from 10 of those and other organizations there, tracts like that's there throughout the week. So anyone who comes into our church, either for that coffee stop on a Wednesday, or for any of our children and youth, our mums and tots, that kind of thing, they'll come through, grab a booklet if they want to, and they've got a chance to read some more as well. So it really is a great opportunity for people to find out a little bit more about what we're saying. We hopefully present the gospel to them in any talks that we give, but books can be a great follow-on to that as well. Thanks, Bethan.
Tim, before you mute yourself again, could you tell us what events that you have got planned for Easter, both adult and family? Yeah, thank you very much. So events we've got coming up, part of it's still in the planning stage, so it might change. We've got our Wheelers, which is our kind of primary school age group, are doing at the end of each term, they always get the parents to come in, do a little bit of a play. I get to do a bit of a talk, and so we'll be giving away kids' books at that. So that'll be a great opportunity. We have often done family fun days, which are our kind of, I guess, like messy church you might have come across. We're not doing that this year just because of the timings with our youth group, but that has worked really well in the past. So our youth group are going away for a week, and basically the leaders are kind of the same. But that's a good opportunity. Our youth group just go away together, have a great time. And again, we try to promote things that they might be reading there. And then we'll be doing on over the Holy Week weekend, as it were, doing Good Friday, we'll be doing Easter, and always intending those to be services that non-Christians could come into. I guess probably exactly the same as all the rest of you do. We'll be preaching the cross on Good Friday, and we'll be preaching Easter on Easter Day, and the books can go alongside that as well. So that's the plan. Thanks, Beth. Thanks, Tim. So I hope Tim's giving you some ideas there. We're just going to talk through some other ideas that we have for how you could be using the activities that might happen in the run-up to Easter to give out resources and to point them to Jesus. So if you've never done one before, could you run a pancake party? So as we think about the start of Lent, could you have a pancake party with your kind of younger group, your primary, or I think the teens especially love these pancake parties because they get to consume so much pancakes. But how are we making that about Jesus? Is it just an opportunity for people to eat a lot, or will there be an opportunity for somebody to explain why it is that Pancake Day exists and the history of it, and then what are we working towards when we think about Lent? Because sometimes I think we presume that people know these things, but maybe they don't. So it's a great opportunity to do something fun, to invite people in. It could be that you use it as an opportunity to invite friends of people who come along to your ministries, to bring a friend along to the pancake party, and that could be a door in for them to have a maintained relationship coming along to those kids clubs or other things. If you've got families who you interact with through maybe Messy Church or through your Sunday school or through those kids ministries, could you produce Lent bags? And you think, what is a Lent bag? Well, in the bag, you can give a variety of things that they could be doing throughout Lent. I've seen it in the past where people have put a little pack of bubbles in and a little instruction to say, say a prayer when you blow the bubbles, and you know, there can be a variety of different things you could put in. You could put in a pencil, or with a Bible verse on, or you could put in a weekly activity to do, a little strip, so that people can be doing something throughout Lent on each of the weeks of Lent. What about an Easter party? So as Tim said, you know, it could be that at the final week before Easter, you could have an event where parents are invited along, or you could just have a more Easter themed party. And I know it's hard, believe me, I'm you know, I'm with you on this. But if we can try and not make it just about chocolate, or just about bunnies, or just about chickens, and to try and make it more about the real meaning of Easter. I always try to buy non-bunny chocolate or non-Easter egg chocolate, and it's tricky, but you can find it out there. Aldi do sell little tiny sheep, which I found really helpful, because you can give those out and talk about Jesus being the good shepherd. There's lots of different avenues that you can use for those, or buy the gold coins. You'll be finding them at the moment really reduced. You can buy those and use those in different ways for treasure, and talking about Jesus, and you know, parables that use lost coins or treasure. So there are other ways of doing this, rather than kind of just going down the standard kind of chocolate, eggs, chickens, etc. route. If you want to give out activity books, so again, we're talking for those people who are linked into your church and things, we do have an activity book called Love Came Down, and this has a variety of things. The cover might look a bit Christmassy, but actually inside of it, it goes through from creation to Christ using John 3:16. So this is useful throughout the year, and it's a great little activity book for kind of juniors, infants, at primary school. If you've got juniors, then we've got these slightly older gospel activities and Joseph activities. The Joseph activities is actually brand new, and you can buy those for just £1 each when you buy in bulk. Those are, as I said, for juniors, the gospel and the Joseph activities. They've got things like word searches, dot to dots, colouring, spot the difference, a real range of activities. But alongside that, it's not just activities. There is an explanation, there is Bible verses, and through doing that, they will see the gospel presented. Now, giveaway books. Now, these can be for, we're going to talk about not just congregation, but also community. So it kind of crosses between both of these. So we do sell a range of Easter books, which are clear on the gospel. Now, I know, because I'm in a number of toddler group Facebook groups, and a lot of people find Easter stories in mainstream high street shops for, you know, a reasonable price. But what I would say is, I'm not saying don't buy those. What I'm saying is, make sure to check that what they contain is the gospel. Make sure that their Easter story doesn't stop short of explaining why Jesus died and that he rose again. Because sometimes those mainstream books that are on the high street don't actually tell the true gospel story. That's what's something that we always make sure, that our Easter resources and the books that we sell are always clear on the gospel. And so it's great to hear Tim's story about that child reading that book every day, pretty much between Easter and Christmas, because they're hearing the true gospel preached to them through that book. And so that's something that we find really important. So we've got a variety here that you could buy, and they're all available from £1 a copy, depending on how many that you buy. And we've got the author of this year's new book, The Topsy-Turvy King. We've got Alison Bruce with her. She's also the author of Are We Nearly There Yet?, which is another Easter book that came out just a few years ago. And so we're going to speak to Alison now to talk about her book, The Topsy-Turvy King, so she can explain to us what exactly it is about.
Hi,
Alison. Alison, whereabouts are you in the country?
We've just recently moved to Nottingham in January, so we're getting to know our new community and church here in Nottingham.
And that's great. And so your husband, am I right in saying that he works for the church?
Yeah, so he's a new vicar here, and so we're just working out what ministry is going to look like here in a new place.
Great. And so tell us, Alison, the book is called The Topsy-Turvy King. So if people are wondering, what is the book about? What would you say in a nutshell the book is about?
Yeah, so I was trying to convey the idea that Jesus is a really different king from what people expect. And I think, in fact, the whole gospel is upside down from what people might expect it to be. People expect the gospel to be about, how doing good. Isn't that what most people think Christianity is about? And actually, it's the opposite of that. It's knowing that we're sinners and repenting and trusting in Jesus. And Jesus constantly confounds people's expectations. And particularly, I was thinking of the disciples and how they, the story starts with how the disciples are fighting about who's going to be the greatest. And Jesus has to tell them, no, it's the first shall be last and the last shall be first, or you have to be like a little child to enter the kingdom. And so Jesus keeps on having to tell the disciples, actually, you've got it completely the wrong way around. And then so the story goes through like that. It's a rhyming story because I like writing rhyming stories and I like reading them to my kids. It's particularly good to read out loud to little ones, isn't it? They like to join in with bits at the end of the story. And we keep getting this repetition that we think he might be crazy. He's a topsy-turvy king. And the story keeps going and the disciples keep being confused by things. And eventually we get to Jesus dying on the cross and they think, well, this can't be right. He's not the king we thought he was. It all looks terrible. And then, of course, ending with the resurrection, that actually now it makes sense. Now we understand what was going on. So that's how the story works. And like Bethan was saying before, it's trying to pick up that theme from Easter and also just be really clear on what the actual gospel is, so that children and the parents that read it to them hopefully as well get kind of interested to find out more and really are hearing the gospel through it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Alison. And at the end, there is a section which is non-rhyming because I appreciate how much difficulty it is in trying to make things rhyme. But there is a section at the end where it explains why Jesus came to die, and so that's non-rhyming, so that it's kind of like, we've read the story, it was great and it's fun, but this is the truth, this is the reason. So it's, this is what I was talking about before. It's really important that the books that we give away aren't just kind of like touching the surface, but going deeper into the real meaning of why Jesus died and that he rose again. So it's a lovely little book. It's perfect for giving away. It's also a great size for sending through the post. So if it fits through the letterbox as well, but if you wanted to send these out to friends or family who don't live close by, it's a great size for sending through the post, because you don't get it's not an extortionate rate for sending that. So it's a beautiful little book, lovely illustrations as well. So that's our new one this year, if you've not seen it. And we're going to come back to this later because it's also got another use as well. So let's think about some giveaway books. So maybe for the adults who are linked in, so the parents of the children who come to your groups, or if you have been running a course or some kind of if you have a food bank running from your church or you're linked into one of those, these are the books that have a clear gospel presentation within them. And this year's brand new book is a book by Roger Carswell called 3 Days That Changed the World. Over on the right of your screen, it is a bit hard to read it, but is Your Verdict on the Empty Tomb, which is the one that Tim suggested. So these are all books that are perfect for giving away, and they're available from just £1 a copy. So could you buy a handful of these or a bundle of these to have at the back of your church? Now, I think it's great to have one specific one which you're going to give out widely, but it is good to have a variety, so that maybe if someone's already read one of them, or people do judge books by their covers, so maybe it's like one person might be inclined to pick up one and another person might be inclined to pick up another. It is good to have a selection. Now, Easter cards. One of the wonderful things that I got from one of the very first Point to Jesus webinars that we did was a suggestion from Roger that we can give out cards in care homes. It's something that never occurred to me, but then as soon as he said it, I was like, wow, that's a great idea, and it's an easy thing to do. And so since then, at my own church, I've been coordinating and getting people to come together to write cards for care homes. So we buy a bundle of packs of cards, we phone up the care homes or email them and say, would you be okay with us doing this? And they are absolutely okay with it because they love this for their residents. And we just say, we just need the first names of the people who are in your care home, and we'll handwrite them a card, and inside it we put a little tract, and we get these out to as many care homes as we can in the vicinity of our church. It's such an easy way to be making that contact. And it's, if you don't already have an opportunity to go into care homes, it could be the first step towards having that opportunity too. So we've got lovely cards. They all have a clear Christian message on them. Again, we're trying to make Christ central this Easter. And so could you do that in your church? Could you get a few people together and say, look, let's write 10 cards each, and let's get this done across a few people. It'll really spread the load. Now, obviously, beyond that, could you give these out to your neighbours, to your family members? Christmas for us was a bit of a write-off when it came to Christmas cards because of the strikes, and it meant that we didn't actually send out a lot of cards. But I'm going to make sure that I send Easter cards to the family members who I didn't get my Christmas cards out to. And I'm going to, apologize for that, but also make sure that they get an Easter card, which is going to remind them of what we're celebrating this Easter. So I think you'll probably find we're probably the cheapest place online to buy Christian Easter cards at just $3.99 for 10. So have a look at those and think about whether you could use those within your church too. Now, from what I said just a few moments ago, having a nice selection of stuff to give away or to have at the back of your church can sometimes seem like, well, it's a bit of an investment. So we've put together this little bundle for you. It's an absolute steal. It's just $29.99, and that'll cover your postage too. And it's over £50 off what the price of these should be. And so within that giveaway box, you're going to get 10 adult books, including Roger's new book, 3 Days That Changed the World, and Your Verdict on the Empty Tomb, which Tim recommended. You're going to get 6 children's books, so just 2 of each of the titles that are there, 4 Life magazines, which if you've not heard of them, we'll come to those in just a moment, and 100 Real Hope tracts. So that means that you could have all of these laid out at the back of your church. You've got tracts to put in your Easter cards to give out in care homes. You've got a few Life magazines to pop at the back of the church, and you've got a selection of books. So this is a really incredible offer, and hopefully something that is very affordable for you as an individual or for your church. Now, I say for you as an individual, Roger will talk about how to have a book stand in the community, but we've tried outside our house. And again, this only really works in the spring, not really at Christmas, having a little table with a little basket on it, which says free, please take one. And our house is not a thoroughfare for anywhere. People, we live kind of at the bottom of cul-de-sac in some senses. And we put one of these out at Easter, and we left it out there. I just put it out in the morning, took it in the evening. Obviously it was raining, I didn't leave it out there, and I kept praying like, oh, I pray that someone will take something out of here. And one day a gospel had gone. I don't know who took it, but I was so made up that somebody had come to my little basket at the end of my drive and taken a gospel, and I just prayed that they would read it. And that was it, one gospel, one day. But somebody took that gospel, and it was so exciting to me that it had an impact. Now, maybe you do live on a busy road. Maybe you live in a house where many children walk past on the way to or from school, and parents, or maybe you live in a place where there's a lot more footfall. Could you put something like this at the end of your drive, just with a sign saying, free, please take one, and just pray that those resources might be taken and that it would have an impact on someone's life? So we're now on this kind of outer ring, our community. What could we be putting on for our community to try and engage them with Easter? So I've got 3 ideas here for you. Some of them you may have heard before, some of them might be new to you. So the lost sheep trail. So during COVID, when we weren't allowed to actually see or be close to people, we had a lot of people doing trails. They would go on trails through their towns, or through their villages, or through their churchyards, where people might leave little knitted sheep or different things. So having trails is still a good idea. We can actually see people and be close to people now, but we can still do trails. And it could be that you want to do a lost sheep trail. It's nice because obviously you've got the idea of you're trying to get people to find something, so find those little lost sheep. I know of a lady who she engages with shops in her town, and they put them in the windows. So not all the shops, but some of the shops have these little knitted sheep in the windows, and there might be a letter or some clue that you find there, and you follow the trail around. And at the end of the trail, you get given a copy of a book. It could be one of our Easter books, or we do have The Lost Sheep, which is one of our children's books, which you can buy on a discount as well. But having a trail is still a good idea. So even though we can get together closely, we can still do trails. Another idea which I've heard of more recently is churches putting on Easter experiences. Now, you might have heard of like a live nativity. Well, this is a kind of a live Easter experience where you have 6 different locations or 6 different little setups where people get to experience different parts of the Easter story. So, the idea of Jesus being the servant king. We can have Palm Sunday, the Last Supper. So you could actually choose for yourself which 6 things you do, or you could have less, or you could have more. But having these hands-on experiences, you could have people kind of acting out part of the Easter story, or you could just have crafts or elements that will remind people of them. But people have invited schools in to do these. So it's something, if you've never heard of before, that you might consider. And we are a little bit out from Easter. We've got a number of weeks yet to Easter. Or it could be that you kind of pin it for next year maybe and think, could we do this next year? Could we host schools in our church building? Or could we go into schools and have little stations set up for children to investigate these different things? Maybe not this year, maybe next year, but it's definitely something to think through. And then slightly different from the Lost Sheep Trail, a treasure hunt. So indoors, outdoors, clues. We did one a few years ago, which was based on Narnia, because our kids club had a Narnia theme. And so we had a little treasure hunt around our local park. We've done it with QR codes in the past, where you follow a map and then you scan a QR code when you get there, which gives you your next clue. It's not difficult to do, and you can do it free. You can get QR codes free online. So there's lots of different activities that you can be doing, or put on an Easter day, which ties in here, an Easter fun day. So how you run that and when you run that is up to you. In our local town, it's a community event where people get a map and they go around different shops, and that is a non-Christian, it's a secular event, and the people give them sweets and chocolates, etc. at each shop they go to. But we have had permission to have a stall on the high street as that is taking part, as that is going ahead, and we give out our books, and we give out invitations to our services, and we kind of do a little bit of explanation about some of the things around Easter. So could you be getting involved in either your own or using a community event as a platform to be able to share the gospel there? Could you have a craft event? Now, again, this is not everybody's cup of tea, but we're told to be creative in our gospel opportunities. Could you have a craft event where people come into the church and take part in a craft event? There could be an opportunity for someone to share the gospel, an invitation for your Easter services. So it's any way that you can be getting people engaged. And I've also put a musical event with a gospel message. Now, I've only recently found out that Handel's Messiah was written specifically for Easter, although we have kind of moved across to having it as a Christmas music event. It is actually written with Easter in mind. So do you have a local choir who you could engage to come and to sing the Messiah or parts of it and then share the gospel with people? Roger actually has a tract about Handel's Messiah, which would be useful to give out for that as well. But there are many ways that we can use our creativity, to use our opportunities and the talents of people within our churches to engage with the community. My own church, we're having a quiz night, so it's not actually as an Easter event. We're having a quiz night on Saturday, at which somebody's going to share a testimony. So could you put on a social evening but have a gospel element to it, so that it's kind of an informal evening, but there will be a gospel message? Have a meal, an Easter meal, where people can invite friends or family along and hear a gospel message. Talking about tracts, so if you're out on the streets or pushing flyers through for your Easter services, could you push through a tract? We have a variety that are helpful for Easter, and we sell them from just 6p a copy. If you're buying in large numbers, they're only 15p if you just want a few, but we sell them from as little as 6p a copy. And don't underestimate the value of tracts, because people, they may take them, they may put them in their pocket, but there have been a number of people that we know about, and many more, I'm sure, who have found that tract at a later date, picked it up, and by the Spirit been convicted through those tracts. And it's just a wonderful opportunity to use tracts. And Roger would be happy to talk to anyone about how important the use of tracts are. The Life magazine, I touched on this earlier because it's in our gospel giveaway pack. It is a Christian magazine. It's an evangelistic magazine that we've been producing for the last 5 years. So it comes out twice a year. And within the magazine, there are tracts that are written as articles, or tracts that have been converted to articles. We have testimonies from people, and then we have more general interest articles, recipes, things that might engage people to pick up a magazine, but then they'll continue to read these gospel messages and important testimonies which point to Jesus. So if you haven't seen the Life magazine before, you can actually flick through it online for free if you'd like to do that, if you go to the product page on our website. But these have been used throughout the country to impact the communities. We've had just recently people contact us through the contact form on the magazine, asking for gospels, details on how to become a Christian, and how information about how to get involved in a local church. So if you've not seen these before, they're an A4 size, they're a really substantial magazine, they're really nice glossy magazine, and so we're really praying that they would have a great impact in the communities, and they're available from just 25p. This is the bit that I would normally leave to Tim, but he's not here today. Tim organises distributions as well. So maybe you think it would be great to give out in your community, but perhaps your congregation aren't able to go and deliver these through people's doors. We do actually arrange for people to have them delivered by Royal Mail, and we've got a really great deal where we can have them distributed to your whole postcode. And so Royal Mail will do the legwork for you, basically. But if you do that, then you can have the back of the magazine, you can have your details about your church printed on them. And so you have this bespoke service as well. So if you're interested in anything like that, do get back in touch with myself, and I can pass you on to Tim, who would be able to give you more information about that. But it's a really handy way to get the gospel out widely to your whole local area surrounding your church. Now I'm going to ask Roger to unmute himself. We're going to talk to Roger. You may have seen these pictures before if you've been to previous events that we've done. This is Roger's little stall that he has in, is it Grassington, Roger?
Yes, so Grassington is where the new series of All Creatures Great and Small is being filmed. It's this lovely, lovely village. So each day it's out there today. I put out this bookstall, as long as it's good weather and as long as I'm working at home, which of course I work away a lot. But I find most days, depending on the weather really, but most days a number of these free books will go. And it's slightly smarter now than that picture shows. I must get a more up-to-date one, but notice the Yorkshire flag, very important. And I just recommend it. The Gideon New Testaments, of course, or Good News for Everyone nowadays, they go very regularly, and then all sorts of other books you never quite know. Usually the children's ones are the most popular, but who knows where they're going, and I just pray that they be greatly used. So tracts, as I think many of you know, I'm a great believer in using tracts as the key to open the door of conversation. How do you get into conversation with somebody? Well, to offer a little gospel leaflet, a Christian leaflet. Or maybe if you've had a conversation with somebody about the Lord, it's the key to close the door of conversation just when you're going to move away, to say, oh, let me just give you one of these. A few tracts I'd like to mention. First of all, I know it's not Easter, but March 17 is St. Patrick's Day. And 10 of those have got a new tract for St. Patrick's Day. I haven't seen it, but somebody who has says, oh, Roger, it's wonderful. So have a look at that. If you've got Irish people in your community, especially, that's a very, very helpful one. And then the Easter tracts, of course, there are several of those. Now, I wonder if I could recommend something. I am linked to a group called the Association of Evangelists. And every so often we go to a place and we have what we call a go day. And we just invite Christians in the locality to join us. And on a Saturday normally, but it could be midweek as well, we go into a town and we do open air evangelism. Now, we might put up a bookstall like this, and somebody will, be looking after that, a couple of people, or we may just have an open air preacher, an open air service, or we may do some door-to-door work. But the main work really is to give out gospel tracts. Now, all right, this is the Association of Evangelists doing it, but in your church, I wonder if on Easter Saturday, you could gather some Christians together and you could have a go day where you go into town, you maybe have an Easter service, if it works, you know your locality, but if not, at least make sure everybody in the town is given an Easter leaflet and an invitation to your Easter services the next day. I think that could be very valuable. I really do think we've got to get out onto the streets again and start talking to people. I think it's very exciting to hear all that's going on evangelistically. I know we always give tips at Christmas, but I'm sure, well, even in Yorkshire, we do that, believe it or not. What about an Easter tip to the delivery men, the milkman, whoever it is who comes? Just, sorry, Bethan, but maybe a bar of chocolate. Let's say that then, a bar of chocolate with an evangelistic book. And just say, a little note, thank you very much for your service. The delivery men especially, I found a very grateful, or I don't know who it is who delivers to you food wise, but our Morrison's man, when we gave him something at Christmas, he really was really grateful. And Easter gives us another opportunity to be able to be doing things like that. Just one other thing, you've mentioned the Handel's Messiah tract. If there is a performance of Handel's Messiah in your locality at Easter, which there probably is, if you go there an hour or so early and just outside give away the Handel's Messiah tract. I've done that on a number of occasions, and the vast majority are very pleased to receive it because they get there early and they sit down and read it before it begins. The only people who refuse it, I found, are the choir members who say, oh, I know all about it. But anyway, but the rest are very happy to receive it. And then we just pray, don't we, that God would use the printed word to speak to individuals.
Great. Thanks, Roger. I'll come back to you in a minute about the coronation. So obviously, we've talked about a lot of resources, but the key, as well as tracts, is the Bible. So we want to encourage people to have at the back of their churches, or if they're doing a stall, giving out things, Gospels, New Testaments, Bibles, so that people can be given a portion of Scripture or a whole Bible, if that's possible, because ultimately we believe that it's powerful and it makes a big impact to people. So we have a variety of things available, from Gospels, New Testaments, and even we do have value Bibles that are just $1.49 available. But whatever you do, make sure that you have Bible resources available when you're doing your outreach and your events. We also want to encourage people to think through the follow-up. What are you going to do after your event? So you want people to come in, you want people to hear the gospel, but what are you going to do afterwards? Because it can't just be that is the end, that you plan up until the services and then there's no thought for what will happen following on from that. So we would encourage you to think through what your follow-up resources might be. Could you do a word one-to-one, which is maybe if you don't have a number of people wanting to do a course, if you have one person who's interested, this is literally a one-to-one course where you work through each page of the book. All the answers are there, which is fantastic because there's no kind of anxiety about, well, do I know the answer to this question? For each question, the answers are already there, but it just helps people to open up and talk through these things. Then we've got a new resource from the Christianity Explored authors called Hope Explored. That's like a mini course. It's just 3 sessions. And so again, if you don't want to, or you're not sure if people want to commit to the longer Christianity Explored course, the Hope Explored is kind of like an introductory course, just 3 sessions. And then that could lead on to the Christianity Explored course for those who are interested. We look for creative opportunities to share the gospel. We look for any opportunities to share the gospel where we think we can engage with people. Now, I know that not everybody is excited or particularly interested in what it is to celebrate the coronation. Maybe people had different views about celebrating the Queen's Jubilee, but irrespective of that, the King's coronation is happening and we can use that as an opportunity to share the gospel. So why wouldn't we? So Roger has written a tract called God Save the King. We have little booklets. So this is the 2 ways to live gospel explanation, but for children. And it's called Who Will Be King. And then I do think that the Topsy-Turvy King, which is our Easter book this year, is another perfect resource for the coronation. Because whereas we think about what our king, Charles, will do in his reign, when we think about Jesus's rule, it's completely different, isn't it? So we can also be using that book as we think about the coronation. So some key dates for you to think through, and then I'll come back to Roger about his tract. The coronation will run over the weekend, the 6th being the Saturday when the actual coronation will take place. On the 7th, we're being encouraged, and this is a national thing, is to have a big lunch or a street party or a community fair. So throughout the country, these will be happening. Now, you can check, there may already be one planned in your local area, and why not take part in that? Become amongst your community and get involved. That would be great. If there's not, could you look to host one? For the coronation, for the Jubilee, we're encouraging people in our church to host their own street parties. So get involved in your street, be in your community, make friendships and build relationships with those people who are local to you, because that is, you know, your doorstep evangelism, isn't it? The people who live directly near to you. So use that opportunity. Or could you host or be a part of a community fair? So that's a great idea. And actually on the Monday, there's some, which is the bank holiday Monday, there's something which is called the Big Help Out. This is community, whether it's litter picking or some kind of community event to improve your community. Now, again, you could be the ones who set this up, or you can be the ones who take part in it, because being part of your community and impacting the community is something that helps bring further opportunities down the line to invite people into evangelistic events or to build friendships with people in your community. So although there may be no gospel preached at that event, it could be the step towards inviting them to a future event. So be thinking through how you can engage in these and how you can thoughtfully give out those resources that we've just mentioned. Roger, talk to us about the tract, God Save the King.
Yes, it's beautifully designed. It looks at the coronation. I don't know how much you can see here, but it really is a lovely tract. and you might just think of giving it in the locality, and then have a coronation service on the 7th Sunday morning, a service where we pray for the King. And of course, the very phrase "God save the King" is in the scriptures, so you've got a Bible text you can preach on. But you may be interested as well. It's not ready yet. It's with 10 of those, but it hasn't yet been designed. There is another tract coming out on Lady Jane Grey. We know that Queen Elizabeth II was the longest reigning monarch. Lady Jane Grey, just the 9-day queen, and she was a wonderful believer. So there's a tract coming out about her that should be ready certainly by the end of March. So you might just keep an eye open for that. But to go around the area with a tract and an invitation to the church, I think is a good thing. Just if I may as well, Bethan, the Life magazine, it's a super magazine, and every time there's a new publication, we order 1,500, 2,000, and we go around the villages here with an invitation to the church. And I think it's the regular doing of it. It's a super magazine. It's very attractive, very easy to give away, but it's the regular impact of giving it to people that I think makes a difference. So you might just consider that as well.
Yeah, and if you can't afford to give away large volumes, could you encourage people in your church to buy 10 copies, 15 copies, or if you buy them together as a group? I always make sure to give out one. Every house on my street get a copy of the Life magazine, along with an Easter card or a Christmas card or whatever season it might be, because like Roger says, it's that ticking over. People see it, they recognize it, and they know that that it's
I wonder if I can come in here. If anybody is in a situation, a church which couldn't afford things. Now, there are many churches that do have money, but if there's any situation where you think we just haven't got the money, but we would like to do it, and especially in the north of England, where there are many, many much poorer churches, there is a trust called Deo Gloria Trust. And they give only to direct evangelism. You could apply. And maybe I know some people on that trust, and they may just be sympathetic.
Practical question: how does Roger get his umbrella to stand over his book table?
It's a little sort of table that you'd normally have in a caravan, and I got somebody just to drill a big hole in the middle.
Great. Someone said next year, could we have this maybe before Christmas so that we can plan earlier for Lent? I think before Christmas, everyone is so Christmas focused. We do try and wait until after Christmas, but maybe we could try and do it in January next year rather than February. We've tried to do it with enough time for you to be ready for Easter, but if you want a bit more time to get ready for Lent, then we can try and maybe bring it a few weeks earlier into January, if that's helpful for people. Love the book, The Topsy Turvy King. What age would you say it's most appropriate for? Alison, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. I think sort of under 6s probably. So to be read aloud to little ones, like toddler groups and things, and then up, that slightly older group might read it to themselves. I forgot to mention that hopefully Michael Tinker is going to be producing a song that goes along with it, like he did with the Christmas song. So follow Michael J. Tinker on YouTube. There might be a video, and then you could perhaps use it in a service if you wanted as well, if you were doing a family service.
Materials suitable to give to adults with learning difficulties. We've actually just had a book come in, which I forget the name of. Rory might be able to help me out on this. He's just put it in. It's called The Best Bit of My Day, and it is written by a charity called Caring for Life, and it's almost like a devotional, but it's written with a very simplified language, and it talks through I think it's Matthew's gospel, and it's written specifically. There's lots. It's a very visual book. There's graphics and illustrations, and it is specifically written for people who may have English as an additional language or learning difficulties, or people who have a lower ability in that sense. So definitely check that out, Jeanette. Great. Thank you so much for your time. It's we do appreciate you giving up this time in your day, but we do hope it's been helpful and useful, and that you might be enthused and, you know, feel that you've got some great ideas for how you can be reaching out this Easter. So thank you ever so much. Do get in touch if you'd like us to pray for a specific event. We do that in our staff devotions. So if you've got a specific event in mind that you'd like us to pray for, then do get in touch. But have a great day, a blessed Easter, and let's pray that people are saved this Easter.